This conference will now be recorded.
We'll take all votes by the board by roll call without objection. Anybody makes a motion in a second, those votes will be considered a yes vote. And finally, any text or communication between board members and other members of the public are considered public records. And with that, we'll ask the secretary to call the roll.
Great, thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
Here.
Katie Boskin.
Present.
Linda Plew.
Present.
Marquita Robertson. Chris Egan.
Present.
Tim Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. As a reminder, please mute your phone and turn on your video if you wish to speak, and that way it'll limit the background noise. Before we go to the next topic, I want to point out that we're honoring our 50-year anniversary of the North Carolina Able accounts being available to the people of North Carolina and throughout the U.S. Our ethics awareness, identification of conflicts, and statement of economic interest. Members, you have the agenda before you. Does anyone present have an actual potential or appearance of a conflict of interest regarding matters that are before us? Thank you. Item 2 in the appendix, you'll find the SCI evaluation of Tim Smith. The Ethics Act requires that any conflicts of interest identified in the evaluation be recorded in the meeting minutes. So the evaluation letter will be made part of today's meeting minutes, and should be a periodic reminder of any conflicts that have been identified by the State Ethics Board. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval of the November 10th meeting minutes.
So moved. Katie Boskin.
Melinda, I'll second.
I'll call the roll. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Marquita Robertson. Chris Egan.
Aye.
Tim Smith.
Yes.
Now we'll have an update from Jeff Hancock about the National Able Alliance Program Manager contract.
Great. Thank you, Treasurer. I had sent out an email earlier in January when we canceled what we had hoped to be our interim board meeting due to slow progress in the contract negotiations between the state of Illinois, who is the lead contract signee, and the program manager of Census. I would like to report that progress continues, but we still have not reached a signed master agreement. As such, the current contract has been extended through March. And in order to be considerate of the board members' time, and instead of trying to schedule another interim board meeting, what I would like to do is propose that the board approve a new program management contract with the Census for the NC Able program, subject to 2 of the following items. That 1, there be an execution of a master agreement between the state of Illinois Able program and a Census on behalf of the Alliance, and 2, that we here at the department are able to successfully negotiate an implementation agreement with the program manager. So again, in consideration and subject to those 2 items, we'd like to see if the board would approve us to approve a new program management contract.
We'll get a motion in a second on the floor, but before doing so, just Reed Chisholm's in the room, our legal counselor to the Able board. Reed, is this, if the board agrees to go in this direction with this motion, is this satisfactory?
It is, yes, sir.
Board members, we're doing this, because we don't have the steering wheel, the gas pedal, or the brake pedal. That's the state of Illinois. They're the ones driving this. Two, we're trying to be cognizant of your other duties and responsibilities. And three, most importantly, I have complete confidence in Jeff Reed and Tom and others to make sure that whatever we ultimately agree to is exactly within the spirit of is what has been done in the past, but possibly even better, not worse.
Do we have a motion?
I'll be happy to make that motion. This is Chris Egan.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Second.
I'll second, Melinda.
That I'll call the roll. Treasurer Falwell,
Aye.
Katie Boskin,
Aye.
Marquita Robertson, Tim Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Proposal tab 2, which will also require a vote. Jeff?
Yep. Thank you, guys. As you all well know, the General Assembly was a little later this year in getting the approved budget to us. And so what I have here in your board materials is our proposed budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. You'll see from the memo in your materials that the budget that was appropriated by the General Assembly for this year is about $209,000. That's down from the previous year, which was around $293,000. The main difference there is $85,000, and that is attributable to the one budgeted FTE that we had here supporting the NC ABLE program, and that position was eliminated by the General Assembly. In addition to the appropriated budget, we, as part of our administrative fee, collect $5 per account. At the end of the year, we had about 1,550 accounts. And so at $5 a piece, that would raise another $7,750. So that brings our total proposed budget in terms of receipts to almost $217,000. You'll also see what our proposed expenditures are for the year. The bulk of what we have is going to be in terms of the reimbursement for the supplemental retirement plan staff that actually works and supports the ABLE program. And you can see there's a increase of about 10% or about $9,000 over last year. The main cause for that change in the reimbursement of staff cost is, first, there was a legislative increase that was granted by the General Assembly. And second, due to some of the work that we're needing to do around some of the changes in federal regulations and getting those implemented with the program manager, as well as some of the contract renewal work that's been going on. Reed Chisholm, our general counsel, we've had to increase his time spent on the ABLE program this year. So that's is the change in, or that increase for that line item. Other than that, you can see what we have budgeted out. We do know that some of our print collateral that we have on hand, some of the current stock is outdated, and we are going to be looking to get some newer, up-to-date print materials. So with that said, I'll see if there's any questions about the budget we have proposed before you today.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to
Do we have a motion?
Katie Boskin, I move to approve the budget.
Thank you, Katie. Second?
Tim Smith, second.
further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Treasurer Falwell,
Aye.
Melinda Klug,
Aye.
Marquita Robertson, Chris Reed.
Aye.
Thank you.
Reed, how long's legal?
Less than 10.
Let me, before Reed starts, I've got to get on the road and then drive somewhere else, so I'm gonna hand the gavel over to Jeff or Tom, either one, but, Reed's got some important information. I just wanted to share, that I was on a call last night. I believe, Jeff, there's 250 people on the call.
That's there were 270 registered for the call. I don't know exactly how many
Yeah.
showed up.
I was so pleased that the interest in ABLE.
Treasurer Falwell, we lost you there again.
All right, I apologize for this. Anyway, there's some great news going on across the state with folks with developmental disabilities, whether it's ABLE or the ARC of North Carolina or any of their chapters. So I hope that when we get to the public comment section, I'll be calling in to listen. I hope that we'll be able to get some of that good news and go forward. So thank you, and I'll be calling in, so maybe you can hear me better. So with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Reed, and then after Reed, we'll have a communications update from Zora, and maybe put a little more light on all these great things that we've been talking about.
So in your materials, you have a proposed report on the ABLE program to the General Assembly. And our ABLE statute requires the board to provide an annual evaluation and reports on the ABLE program to the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Health and Human Services. And let me pause right there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
I should say, can anyone not hear me? Okay.
Can someone out there say whether they can hear us or not?
We can hear you.
We
can hear you.
Thank you.
The ABLE program was launched in January 2017, and our first report was issued by the board in February of 18 and covered calendar year 2017. The report for 2020 was approved by the board last February. The report for 2021 as proposed by staff is in your materials and is similar in format to last year's report, albeit with updated performance numbers, accomplishments, and outlook. I do want to highlight two specific items in the report. First, the average account balance continued to grow, reaching approximately $10,000 at the end of last year. And this is 5 times the resource limit of $2,000 for SSI and Medicaid eligibility. Also, in addition to the $15.4 million in North Carolina ABLE accounts at the end of last year, the program provided more than $5.4 million of distributions to participants over the program's first 5 years. Staff recommends that the board approve the report in your materials. Are there any questions?
All right, the treasurer stepped out. This is Tom Causey. So, any questions from any of the board members? All right, I will, do we have a motion to accept? Do we have a motion to, I'm sorry,
To accept the
Annual
report, the annual report.
yeah, so do we have a motion to accept the annual report?
So moved, Melinda.
Good. I'll second Melinda's motion.
Thanks. All right, take a
So,
roll.
all right, Thomas Causey on behalf of Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Chris Egan,
Aye.
Tim Smith,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So next on the agenda, item number 7, communications and marketing update from.
There's one more legal. I
Oh,
want to
okay.
give an update on the federal implementation of the federal able
Okay,
regulations.
thanks, Reed.
So I want to provide an update on 3 of the items from the federal able regulations that the Alliance, including the NC Able program, is implementing this year. The first, the federal regulations expand the types of individuals who can open and manage an Able account on behalf of the account owner. As always, an account owner can manage his or her own account and can appoint an authorized individual through a power of attorney. Likewise, a guardian of the estate or a general guardian in North Carolina can have the authority to open and manage an Able account. North Carolina's Able statute also includes the parents and siblings of account owners. These were added over the last few years. However, the federal regulations expand this list of permitted authorized individuals and provide an order of preference or hierarchy for authorized individuals. The list applies, though, only when the account owner is unable to establish his or her own Able account. The permitted authorized individuals in the federal regulations in decreasing order of preference are agent under a power of attorney, guardian, spouse, parent, sibling, grandparent, and then finally representative payee appointed by the Social Security Administration. In particular, spouse, grandparent, and representative payee are new for the NC Able program. The National Able Alliance, including staff here at the department, has interpreted the list of authorized individuals in the federal regulations as mandatory for qualified Able programs. So staff is also going to propose legislation to conform the state Able statute to federal law. One final comment on the new hierarchy. As always, an account owner can remove an authorized individual at any time, with the possible exception of a guardian, which requires action of a court. In addition, the federal regulations permit an Able program to accept a certification from an authorized individual regarding the person's authority to open an Able account for someone else. The certification would require the following information. 1, which type of authorized individual the person is, and 2, a statement that no other person with a higher priority in the hierarchy is both willing and able to serve as an authorized individual. The certification could be in lieu of submitting documentation to the Able program. However, the NC Able program will continue to require documentation of an authorized individual status as an agent under a power of attorney, a guardian, or parent. In addition, we will require documentation for a spouse and a representative payee. It's less practical to require documentation from siblings and grandparents. However, the NC Able program will require siblings and grandparents to provide affidavits that attest to their status. And finally, the federal regulations permit an account owner to name a beneficiary or successor account owner to receive the account upon the owner's death. The successor account owner must be eligible for an Able account in order to maintain the funds in the Able account. Furthermore, even if the successor account owner is eligible for ABLE, taking over the account is treated as a distribution for tax purposes if the successor is not a sibling of the original account owner. So staff is working with the Census and Alliance to implement these items by the deadline in November. But are there any questions?
All right, no questions for Reed? And we'll go ahead and then move back on to number 7. Zora will give us communications and marketing update.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you for confirming. I'm going to give a high-level overview of some of our communication efforts in the fourth quarter. So next slide, please, Patty. Thank you. So as you may recall, during the last board meeting, we talked about some of the success we had around National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October. And I wanted to personally thank the treasurer again for the time he put toward this initiative. We are seeing the positive momentum from all of those efforts even today. And it all really accumulated in a very active and impactful Q4. We issued 4 press releases around the NC ABLE program, including one with our partner, the ARC of NC. We also posted these press releases onto the DST website and shared them across our social media channels for additional exposure. In Q4, we also participated in the first ever North Carolina State Fair Accessibility Day. There we had an NC ABLE information booth, and the treasurer also was able to attend and speak. Also in Q4, we saw an amount of ABLE-related coverage to kind of take steam in national media, if you will. We saw more coverage around the ABLE program as a whole in national media such as MSN Money and Business Insider. So all of this positive buzz and generation of awareness really increased the amount of organizations who are proactively coming to us and requesting information sessions. So in Q4, we gave a presentation for the North Carolina Brain Injury Association, as well as the North Carolina Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Disorders Group. And heading into 2022, we already have 5 other presentations on the books. So again, this renewed interest in the program is really great. Can you advance the slide, please, Patty? Thank you. So all of our communication efforts are supported by social media. And in Q4, we saw an increase in the amount of followers, as well as an increase in interactions across all of our social media channels. And one thing I wanted to point out is in Q4 compared to Q3, we actually had a 67% increase in our Facebook reach. So that again is really great to see. We also continue to leverage our partner social media channels. So by resharing some of their content that's relevant to NC ABLE, we're actually able to expand our reach and also the engagement across all of our channels. Next slide, please, Patty. So one thing that's really important to us as we continue to really increase the amount of account holders and accounts that we have is constantly trying to get feedback from our account holders on how we can really strengthen the NC ABLE program. So at the close of 2021, we issued the second ever NC ABLE newsletter and account holder survey. And we're still receiving results and people are still responding to that survey, but we wanted to share some of the initial findings with you today. So as you can see on this slide, 65% of the people who responded so far are parents of account holders, and a whopping 90% of people are enrolling in the program online. So that shows us that our digital tools there are really working. One thing that I found really interesting is we can directly correlate all of the events that the treasurer partook in Q4, as well as all of the media and press around those events directly with how people are learning about the NC ABLE program. So that's exciting to us because it shows our communication channels are working and we're hitting the audiences that we are aiming to reach. Next slide, please, Patty. So when getting these initial survey responses, we're also starting to identify key trends with how we can really improve the NC ABLE program. So on this slide, you'll see a snippet of some of the actual responses we got from account holders. And some things that stood out to us is there's an opportunity here to provide more education around the account fee structure of NC ABLE, as well as the different fees associated with an account. And there's also an opportunity here to provide more webinars to account holders on topics that they're interested in, like investment options and the different reporting that's required for NC ABLE. So again, we're able to look at these trends and use these trends to directly inform our communication efforts moving forward and really continue that great momentum we have into 2022. So I want to also provide a quick snapshot of some things we're working on in Q1. As I mentioned before, we've seen an increase in the amount of advocates and organizations reaching out to us for informational presentations. So that's kept us quite busy in this first quarter. We're also in the process of transitioning our ncable.org website onto the new nc.gov platform. And this is exciting because it will provide us with increased security as well as increased accessibility, and is something that we'll be able to promote in our marketing materials moving forward. And finally, this year is a big year for us as we celebrate NC ABLE's 5th year anniversary. So it's the 5th year of account availability. And we are celebrating throughout the year in a campaign that we're calling the Power of 5. And we're really using this milestone as a way to generate awareness of the program to eligible populations. So there's quite a bit more about the Power of 5 that I'll share at our next board meeting. So stay tuned there. I know I gave quite a bit of information, but I'm going to stop here and turn it over to you all to see if there's any questions.
So there's a lot of great work being done. Any questions of Zora? Anything she can help answer?
This is Katie Boskin. I commend you, Zora, on the outreach. I can sort of hear myself coming back through the meeting. I wanted to ask 2 questions. One, are we in control of the fees on the checking accounts?
So the fees are charged by Fifth Third. It's something I believe that gets negotiated as part of the contract. But the fees on the checking account can be waived if the account owner maintains an average daily balance of $250 or more, or if they just simply elect to have their statements delivered electronically. I know that in one of our surveys, we had gotten some feedback regarding the fees. And so I think there's just some awareness there that that is a fee that can be waived. So I hope that answers your question, Katie.
It does. And when you say can be, does that require someone to request waiver, or simply opting into electronic statements achieves that goal?
Just opting into the electronic statements achieves that.
Thank you. And then my second question is about the withdrawal forms and the comment that someone made about faxing those forms. Can you help me understand how that's working, or if are there plans in place to modernize that so that withdrawal forms can be submitted online?
So we have Jose Gamboa on the phone from Ascensus, who is the program manager. Jose, I don't know if you can possibly address that question regarding withdrawal forms, and if there's thoughts about moving that to an online process or adding an online process.
Great. Thank you so much. And good morning, everybody. My name is Jose Gamboa from Ascensus. And I would love to dig a little bit more. I wish we had contact information in this particular case, because right now account owners are able to actually perform a withdrawal transaction through their online portal, or what we call behind the login. So if they logged in and they wanted to process a withdrawal to perhaps their bank or maybe a paper check elsewhere, that option is available and currently live for NC Able. So I'm not sure if in this particular case, maybe they didn't have online access. Once again, we also offer kind of that option to be able to process a withdrawal via phone as well.
I appreciate that. That alleviates my concern.
Sure, you're welcome.
And this is Zora. Just one other thing to add. Seeing that fees is something that our account holders have brought to our attention. We're also in the process of updating our messaging with additional messaging around fees and the fee structure, just so that our website and other materials are a little bit more clear with this. And then we're also in the process of educating people via our social media channels around our fees. So just some different outlets that we're going to use moving forward to get some of that great information out.
Yeah, and one thing that just recently happened in terms of fees, and I think this goes to highlight the power of the alliance, but as an alliance on a whole, we just reached a new asset milestone, and as such, our investment option fees were reduced from 30 basis points down to 28. So again, we are seeing fees in certain areas come down. We expect that we might see some further enhancements there in terms of the new contract. We're just gonna have to wait and see, but we are seeing the power of the alliance in terms of how it impacts fees. I think Chris Egan, I think you have a question.
I do. Thank you. This is Chris. You may have answered it, but I think the information's been great, and I appreciate the questions and the data we're seeing on that, and the opportunity to survey people to get these kinds of questions. And usually, and I'm sure this is on the site, but so forgive me for not going to dig around for that. I should have, but a set of FAQs or something that actually really lays out questions we're receiving with answers. Trust that's probably there in some way, but I just thought I'd ask and verify.
That's a great question, Chris. We do currently have an FAQ on our website that we continually update, and honing in on some of these subjects that account holders either are interested in learning more or simply need more information about. We're using that to update these FAQs. So we're going to add more language around the fee structure to that.
Thank you.
And further to that, one great source of questions or new questions is each time we do some of these outreach events, at the end of our presentation, we typically do a Q&A session, and we've been doing a lot of good work in capturing those Q&As, and so that's been a good source for us to know what types of questions people have and what comes to top of mind. So thanks for that, Chris, and we'll certainly keep those FAQs up to date as we continue to get more questions.
All right, thank you very much. These are great questions. Thank you, Zora.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 8, administrative update. Jose Gamboa.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, and thank you to the esteemed guests and Treasurer Falwell for allowing Ascensus to present for the board meeting here. Again, my name is Jose Gamboa. I am the NC Able Relationship Manager. I'm also joined by Paul Soupe. He's part of our investment management team. He's a director here. What I'll do is I'll go through the program data, and Paul will follow with the kind of fund performance slides. So again, congratulations on reaching the power of 5. I think that's incredible, and I think this agenda worked out well, because ultimately as Zora pointed out in her presentation, there's a great deal of kind of virtual boots on the ground efforts in fourth quarter. And I think, as we review the data, you'll see the impact of those efforts. So super excited to be here and really appreciate everyone giving us a platform. If we could go to the total assets by month, if you wouldn't mind, Patty, please. Thank you so much. And what we're looking at here is, as someone had pointed out earlier in the meeting, NC ABLE program has now reached a major milestone here, a little north of $15 million in assets under management. When you look at where we were at in December of 2021, you're looking at essentially an increase of 57%, and a 12% increase in Q4 2021. So some of this growth is for sure new enrollments, some organic growth as in terms of stock market, but then there's also contributions, as we'll see in the following slides here. Next slide, please. Excellent. And this is actually a very interesting and unique slide, and this is assets by investment option for Q4 2021. As we can see, the largest portion of the AUM or assets under management resides in the checking option, right? 28%. Clearly, NC ABLE is meeting the needs of those participants that require a tool for transactional activity, right? To be able to spend for qualified disability expenses on a daily basis. But I think, one thing to note here is you also have a swath of NC ABLE participants that are also interested in investing in the long run. I mean, listen, that's their initial plan and that's their thought. As you can see, the growth option, aggressive option, that comprises nearly 30% of the AUM altogether, right? So love to see that essentially the investment options that currently the NC ABLE program does offer seems to be meeting the needs of the NC ABLE participants. Excellent. Next slide. And again, this is to piggyback off of Zora's presentation. Clearly, there was a great deal of kind of digital exposure out there, kind of outreach in fourth quarter. And as we could see here, there was a notable increase in December for total contributions. So as you can see, it was north of $800,000, which was fantastic. And the next slide here, if you wouldn't mind, is the contributions by type. And as we can see here, again, 10% using reoccurring EBT contributions, which are single electronic fund transfer contributions, comprises of 46% of total contributions. And then, of course, we have check, UGIF, and other methods of contributions. But again, kind of extending a little bit more of that narrative about the NC ABLE typical participant, enrollment at 90% electronically. It just goes to show you how empowered the NC ABLE, user is, right? That they're able to use the method online, that they're taking advantage of it, whether it's through reoccurring contributions, which are sticky contributions, or they're, once again, going online, web registering, and then processing a single contribution. So it's fantastic. And next slide, please. And here's an interesting slide. We've again, this is a unique add-on since the last we had presented, and this is contributions by age group in 2021. And as you can see here, the age range of the account owners range all the way from 0 to 10, all the way from 66. If we were to look at, let's say, the 5 to 9, this would probably be a little bit more unique graph or chart, so to speak. But as you could see here, it's too early to glean any sort of assumptions off this. But as you could see, it's an interesting graph to depict the type of contributions receiving based on the age group of of the NC Able participant. Excellent. Moving on to the next slide, Patty, please. What we have here is just distributions month after month. As we could see, a great deal of activity towards the end of last year, from August through December. We would imagine potentially December is due to the holidays, things of that nature. But this is pretty in line with what we also saw with other Alliance members. Perfect. Moving on to slide 8. Great. And once again, this is a new slide that we added since the last presentation. I'm sorry, slide 9, Patty. Sorry about that. That's my fault. And this is distributions by type, right? So it's a breakdown of, we track withdrawals as in terms of the type of withdrawals that are being processed. So this, once again, is essentially the methods that NC Able participants are using to withdraw. And as you could see, once again, extremely impressive withdrawal at bank, 63.97%. As you can see, there's other folks who are a small group that are taking advantage of what we call a systematic withdrawal process, which is an automatic method of automatically processing withdrawals on a monthly or a quarterly basis. So you do see that, but largely it's withdrawal at the bank or a direct withdrawal check to the account owner. The one last notable thing here, always great to see, is just that rollover number. Again, very small. It's less than 0.5%. So those folks, seemingly majority of withdrawals are really for qualified disability expenses and not necessarily leaving the plan. Excellent. On to slide 10. Once again, in kind of a very similar flavor to contributions by age group, we've outlined distributions by age group. And it's interesting, again, as you could see, there's a great deal of distributions happening at the ages from 17 to 19, 26 to 27, 32 to 34, and 46 to 50. And perhaps maybe this is data that will be helpful, as Zora formulates, the outreach and communication plan for 2022. Next slide, please. Also exciting numbers here, right? As we see continuous growth, incremental growth, new accounts by month. Clearly, the fourth quarter initiative had an impact, I think. As we could see, total new accounts for the month of December was 65. So incredible work, incredible effort. Again, new accounts for 2021, we're looking at 582. As it stands as of December, there's 1,623 total plan accounts. So fantastic. And moving on to slide 12, please. And again, just it's accounts by disability type and total assets based on disability type. As you can see, a majority reside in developmental disorders and then respiratory disorders. Great. And moving on to slide 13. Once again, digging a little bit more deeper into the data as in terms of account structure. In addition, the types of the basis of eligibility here. And again, more often than not, the investors are selecting the account owner has the eligibility established by disability certification. And when you look at the breakdown of total custodial types, as in terms of total assets, as you can see, it's really spread across, as in terms of assets, across the 3 custodial types, which is account owner self, north of 5 million, parent guardian type, it's a little bit above 4 million, and then an authorized individual of an adult able account owner to 5.6. And moving on to slide 14. And what we look at here is account closures by month. Again, for Q4 2021, when you look at total, there was 39 closed due to inactivity, and that really essentially is either no funding or legal documents were not received. Closed full disbursement was 6, 5 by customer request, and then closed due to perhaps maybe it being an invalid account. And moving on to slide 15. And what we had here was, again, is aligned asset rankings as of December 31st, 2021. NC Cable is north of $15 million. They comprise of 5.73% of total Alliance assets under management. North of them is really just less than half of the other plans out there. So. And if no one has any questions regarding the program data, I can then pass it off to Paul, and he could go through the fund performance.
Okay, thank you, Jose. And yeah, we could move up a couple slides, I believe, to slide 17. And I had some technical difficulties earlier today, so I might have a different name down the bottom. I'm using my wife's iPad because I couldn't get video on my own computer, but hopefully everyone can see me and hear me okay. Great.
I can hear you, Paul. Thanks. Thank you.
Can we move ahead a couple slides to the performance area? Yeah. Perfect. So this is kind of a viewpoint as the end of the fourth quarter. We have the kind of performance to the right-hand side and the assets and the allocations to the left-hand side. As Jose mentioned a little bit earlier, we have seen great growth within the plan year over year, about 57% growth and 12.5% growth quarter to quarter. With the stronger equity markets, we have continued to see those higher equity, higher risk portfolios kind of lead the way within the NC Able portfolios. In comparison to the National Able Alliance altogether, I believe we kind of mentioned at the investment review, the top 4 portfolios from the moderate option up to the aggressive option, that was about 50% of the National Able Alliance assets, and it was 50% below it. Here, that same kind of mix, those top 4 equate to about 60% of the North Carolina Able assets. So a little bit more long-term assets, hopefully, within those 4 portfolios. Hopefully that's reflective of kind of the data that Jose showed earlier, where younger people are contributing to the portfolios, and hopefully that means a longer term contribution or so, but it will take time to kind of really figure that out, see how they take withdrawals from that. Obviously the Able program is a little bit different than you'll see on a retirement side, or you'll see even on the college savings side, where that money is basically in there for decades at a time. It can be taken out right away. So it's definitely more history that we'll have to get on a lot of these assets to see what the flow is on these assets. But it's good to see kind of contributions kind of going into those assets. Hopefully they're a little bit stickier than what we see in the checking account. What we have for asset allocation to that checking account is 22%. So that's a little bit lower than what we see within the Alliance as a whole, which is usually up around 26, 27, 28% from quarter to quarter. Obviously, we had a pretty robust 2021, great equity returns there. That's helped returns, and that's helped the allocations move up, especially on the higher equity side for portfolios. Throughout the inception date, which is a little over 5 years now, we see returns of up to 13% almost for the most aggressive, and even down to about 3% for that conservative. So that's really kind of beating inflation over that time period as well. So that's good to see that there's not really a loss of kind of value to that money, even within that conservative portfolio. What we'll see through kind of the next couple slides, we'll look at the underlying, and we'll see asset allocation really has a hand in keeping these positive returns for the portfolios. We've definitely hit some periods of time where the fixed income is having a little bit of a difficulty with rising rates, and that hurts underlying performance on the fixed income side. But it's the asset allocation that's kind of really helped give positive returns to that segment of these portfolios. So if we can move ahead to the next slide. So this first slide of the underlying is a look at the equity underlying holdings within the target risk portfolios. So those top two funds here are the Vanguard Institutional Index, which covers the large cap allocation to the portfolios, and the Vanguard Extended Market Index that takes care of the small to mid cap portfolios. So together, they really kind of work together to give a broad diversification for the entire U.S. equity markets. And we'd like to have a little bit of a distinct holding to each of them so that we can give a little bit different weighting to those allocations than you might get in a total allocation fund. But obviously, over the last 5 years, we've had good returns in the U.S. equity markets. They've outperformed the international equity side, so we've had strong returns overall in the portfolios there. One thing that we have seen at the end of 2020, we're seeing a shift to small and mid cap stocks and away from those large cap stocks. And we thought that would continue, but with kind of inflation rising, that has kind of shifted back to kind of the large cap stocks. And so by the end of the fourth quarter, we saw that shift back to large caps outperforming the small and mid cap side. On the international side, which is represented by the next two funds, we have it broken up between developed markets and the emerging markets. So for years between 2018, 2019, and 2020, we really saw kind of the emerging markets really outperforming those developed markets. You had some of those developed markets like Great Britain that were bogged down with kind of the Brexit regulations or so, and that was kind of hurting the economy there. At the end of 2020, they finally got past those requirements. They broke free, and really the UK and Great Britain has really kind of surged within 2020. What had carried the emerging markets prior to that was the Chinese economy. The Chinese economy generally makes up about 35 to 40% of the market index at times. And that was, the growth there was kind of tremendous for years. That has, had a much tougher 2021. It was down nearly 20% for the year. So we saw some countries flip-flopping. We saw the trend moving from emerging markets to equities. We saw the countries that were leading in 2019 and 2020 really kind of flip around to the ones that got hit hardest by Corona and the stay-at-home and other reasons like Brexit. Those kind of flip-flopped, and now kind of developed markets led throughout 2021, kind of all through the 4 quarters. So some trends we see that happen for a quarter or 2 quarters and then flip-flop. Some of them are longer term. So we've seen this international play a little bit longer term than we saw within the U.S. equity markets. In one sector within the U.S. markets that we give a dedicated space to is the real estate market. This definitely helps when we get inflation, when inflation hits and inflation rises, that generally helps hard assets, and real estate can be a sector where that kind of provides some safety to. And real estate was definitely hit by kind of the stay at home and the work from home environment that hurt commercial real estate. With a change back to coronavirus vaccines coming out, that brought people back to kind of normal life a little bit, and that brought the real estate market back. So that was one of the strongest performers within 2021. It really kind of was energy and real estate were really kind of the strongest sectors. And those, of course, were two sectors that got really hit hard in 2020. So having that diversification within these portfolios, again, have some ups and downs, but it really kind of plays to even things out as things are probably pretty broadly diversified here. So that's helped the equity markets stay positive within these kind of changing trends and times. Any questions on the equity side? If not, we can move to the last slide, which is the fixed income piece. So here's another situation where kind of asset allocation really plays a big role. There's obviously a lot of headwinds with the fixed income side. There's interest rates rising, and there's inflation that's rising, and there's supply chain issues. Obviously, rising interest rates really kind of hurt bond performance. As interest rates rise, that brings sensitivity to the bond performance and kind of negatively affects bond performance. Having such low yields to start with, it really kind of brings it down in high probability for negative returns. So we have two things that we do on the fixed income side. We try to keep our duration as short as possible to our fixed income allocations. So that's where we have a short-term bond allocation to kind of offset the durations of bonds that we have with that Vanguard Total Bond Market Index, which is kind of the normal 5 to 7 year duration of bonds. Well, we lower that with our allocation to short-term bonds. Then we also have a inflation protected bond allocation in there, which is fairly high within these portfolios. So it takes about 35% of the allocation for the fixed income allocation for it. And we use a short-term inflationary product in here because it's more dedicated just to tracking the inflation or so. When you get kind of longer term TIPS products or treasury inflationary products, sometimes that has a little bit more inflation sensitivity or interest rate sensitivity marked into it. So when interest rates are going down, those products look really good. But we're in a situation now where inflation's going up, but the Fed will also be raising rates. So interest rates will follow and rise as well. So this is an area where that short-term TIPS can get the can be a stronger component to track that inflation and not have that negative impact of rising interest rates. So that's really kind of helped the target risk portfolios over the last year, especially, and that's where we've kind of gotten our positive return out of these. And beyond kind of the US markets, we do have a small international bond exposure. About 10% of our fixed income is related to that international bond space as well. We see that, our kind of thoughts and our kind of capital market expectations are that the Fed is going to raise their rates between 3 or 4 times within the next year. When you get internationally, it can be a different story. So when we look at someone like the ECB, which is the European equivalent to the Fed, they don't see themselves raising their rate at all for the entirety of 2022. They think inflation is in check within Europe, so they don't foresee raising rates there. So you'll see maybe kind of a slower interest rate climb in an international space, and that might help those international bonds in comparison to the US bonds. So that's why we kind of hold a allocation to the international bond space as well. So having kind of all these allocations mixed together, we were able to get a positive return out of this fixed income space, about just under 1% for that allocation for the year, and about 0.2% for the quarter. So even though it's been a tough time for fixed income, and you can see a lot of negative returns within the quarter and the year, we were able to kind of allocate that position to a positive for those portfolios. Any questions on the fixed income side or any of the performance?
Paul, hey, this is Jeff. Paul, this is Jeff. I do have one question. We had received a question during our presentation last night where we were asked if we could distribute the fund performance. And before we did that, I mean, I know that it's out on our website, but I just wanted to check and see, is that something that we can push out to people that are asking for that information?
Yeah, I mean, generally the custom benchmarks are not put out to the public, but generally the fund performance and probably the underlying fund performance could all be put out there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions for?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tom, this is the treasurer. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. This isn't a question, just a statement, but it's important, no matter what board you're on, for people to understand the inflation numbers that are being reported by the federal government do not include food and energy. So
Correct.
raise your hand if you can live without food and energy. And so it's just we're never going to have people at hello as long as the federal government keeps putting out things like unemployment rate that only includes those that are looking for employment. And I know that was a little editorializing, but it's just inflation is really impacting people, and I suspect it's disproportionately impacting able participants.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of ways of looking at inflation. The Fed generally uses the PCE, which does exclude food and energy. They consider those more volatile and cyclical readings. So they generally exclude those, and that generally lowers what you'll see for inflation rate. That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ascensus? All right. And do we have anybody that signed up for public comment? Public comment? All right. I do want to apologize for our technical difficulties, and for those of you who may have seen us on camera wandering around, we're all gathered around Patty's computer trying to make sure you can hear us. So we're making do with what we can. Is there any comments from the board members?
I just want to thank staff. I had a great conversation with Melinda yesterday about a unsolicited donation coming in based on some of our press last fall on National Disabilities Employment Awareness Month. She may be one to tell us what part of that she can tell us. And last night I was just happy to be on these Zoom calls. I had something happen to me last night on a Zoom call. It's never happened to me. I had just walked out of an intense yoga class, and I was speaking to a Rotary Club right before I got on the ABLE call, and so when we got to the questions and answers, one of the questioners, people asked if I was at a detox center because I was sweating so much. So I've never had that question before. So Jeff, if anybody writes in about our call last night on the ABLE product, just remind them I was not at a detox center or in a hospital. I was it was just trying to cool down and provide information. So anyway, that's the treasure humor. It's well hidden, so I'm glad that somebody got it.
I got it,
Any-
Treasurer. I'll follow up with that. This is Melinda. Yes, you and I had a great conversation yesterday. So after several months after National Disability Employment Month, we received a nice check from a family foundation in Wilmington after they saw the press coverage on what we were doing, and it was a really nice surprise, and just really grateful for it. So doing great things, and we appreciate it.
Thanks.
And Melinda, if it's correct, it was an amount of money you'd never seen at one time from one place,
Well,
right?
we're not big fundraisers at the Arc of North Carolina. We provide services that are billable, so we're not used to getting unsolicited good money, and it was 5 figures, and it was really nice sum of money for us. So we're very grateful, and we're going to figure out a way to use it, and we will market that and make sure that you know about it.
Well, it all started in Wilmington with Betty and Bose, and we were highlighting the importance of folks with developmental disabilities and getting the cafeteria open this year at UNC Wilmington with the employment crisis. So thank you, Melinda, for putting all that together that day.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? All right, the date of our next meeting is Wednesday, May 11th at 9:30. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
This is Chris. I'll second.
Don't everybody jump at once.
I make a motion to adjourn. Treasurer, thank you.
At the second.
Chris, I'll second. This is Chris.
Sure. Melinda Clue,
Yes.
Eddie Boskin,
Yes.
and Tim Smith.
Let's just say yes.
I think the ayes have it.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.